Hi, welcome to Give Me the Bible, where God's Word speaks for itself. In continuing our discussion of biblical interpretation, we need to address a phrase that so often comes up whenever we get into talking about Bible interpretation. The phrase that you so often hear is, well, the Bible's just open to interpretation. And what that means is, at least when a person says that, what they're really saying is all interpretations are equally valid. So if you read something in the Bible and you believe something about the Bible, well, that's fine. You're right. But if I read that same passage and I get something different out of it, well, then I'm right. And so it's basically this idea that no matter what view you get from the Bible, well, that's okay that you're right, because hey, the Bible's just open to interpretation and it's all subjective, and so what's true for you is true for you, what's true for me is true for me. What a powerful lie that is, that Satan has gotten us to believe. In fact, one of the greatest lies that Satan has ever told this world, because it makes God's word completely subjective, and we can basically find God's approval, at least we think we found God's approval for almost any belief in any practice by convincing ourselves that really whatever the Bible means to me is true. And that is so false. We have to stop that right now. Don't let anybody ever get away with saying something like that. It's foolishness, it's dangerous, and we're going to answer to God for that. John 17 and verse 17, Jesus is praying to God that he would sanctify or set apart his followers. And notice what he says they'll be set apart by in verse 17. John 17:17, sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. What we're talking about when we deal with the Bible is truth. Okay? That's not subjectivity. Truth is objective. It's like math, right? Things that are true are things like 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's what truth is. Okay, that's not a matter of opinion. 2 plus 2 just equals 4. And if you think that 2 plus 2 equals 5, I'm not going to look at you and say, well, that's just your interpretation of 2 plus 2. My interpretation is 4. And so if you get 5 out of that, well, then you're right too. We're all right. That is not how it works. Okay? And think about how foolish that is. Let's get off of math, okay, because obviously the Bible is literature. It's not math, but I wanted to make that point because of the truth principle. But let's even get into literature. Let's even get into writing. Let's say that you wanted to communicate something to someone, so you wrote them a letter. Now, when you wrote them this letter, you put meaning into that letter, and you expected that when they read this letter that they would understand what you are trying to say to them. When you write that letter, though, are you ever thinking, well, this is pretty good, I'm trying to convey this meaning, this is very important, but however they take this is really okay, and it's right. However they understand what I'm writing, they'll be correct that that's what I mean. Well, no. When you write somebody a letter, you have a very specific meaning that you're trying to get across. That's called communication, okay? And so when that person reads your written communication, you want them to get a specific meaning out of it. And you know what that meaning is? It's the meaning that you intended them to get when you wrote it. And that's the same way with the Bible. God is trying to communicate with us. And so if God is trying to communicate meaning to us and messages to us and his will to us, well, he's trying to get a specific meaning across to us. He wants us, when we read his will, to understand his will. Okay, not to just look at it like, well, God just wants us to take this however we want to take it. That doesn't make sense. That's not what communication is on any level. And it's amazing when people approach the Bible that they think that's how the Bible's supposed to be taken. And that is just not true. And so let me just encourage all of us to, again, remember that all-important principle that we talked about a few videos back, that the Bible was not written directly to us. It was written to specific people in a specific time. And so we always have to ask the question, what did the author mean when he wrote what he wrote? Because once we can figure out what the author meant and the meaning that he meant to convey to the original audience, that's when we can understand the true meaning of the text and start applying it to our lives. I hope that that is helpful to find out and to really be solid on understanding that not all interpretations are equally valid. We're talking about truth here. We're not talking about complete subjectivity. I hope that's helpful, and Lord willing, I'll see you next time.